Hello! Welcome to another episode of DNA Hardwired. Common sense turned upside down. My name is Pop, and joining me are my co-hosts, Nikki and Tammy.
Hello.
We would like to thank you for joining in on this thought-provoking episode. And today we're going to talk about blame and personal responsibility. A friend of mine had sent me a link to a podcast, and the podcast was two young men, two young hosts, and they were talking about who hurt you. It was a very good podcast, but it left me thinking and feeling the hosts, again, who appeared to be very intelligent, seemed like they were doing a whole lot of blaming and not taking much personal responsibility for their own personal trauma, dealing with women in relationships, primarily their mother, starting off with their mother. Seemed like they were blaming their mothers a lot. I suspect that many of us have faced many unpleasant or traumatic experiences in our lives, and so we can identify with that trauma thing. But the question is how we dealt with those events. I believe that depends primarily on us. Joining us today, we have two regular guests now, Tony and Jackie. So we'll go ahead and get started. Hopefully, everybody on this podcast listen to to that podcast that I sent to you. Matter of fact, I know you did because I verified it. But before we get into the podcast, I would like to give our guests opportunity to make any comments on any of our past episodes or anything else in general. Any comments, Tony, Jackie? Okay.
Well, no. This is my second one. I think my first one was I was impressed with the level of intellect between all the guests on the panel. So I think the overall mission was to have an intelligent conversation about the topic at hand, and I like the way it played out. If I say anything,
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. I tell you though, we're gonna have to start getting some unintelligent guests on. We need to liven this thing up, Tony.
That was
and
Jackie. That was Jackie.
I mean Jackie. Yeah, we're gonna.
Hey, Pop.
Yeah.
That won't be hard.
You know what? It's funny you said that.
Young, Pop.
What was that?
The day's still young. Wait till we get through this one.
Yeah. And I will be truthful to you. I'll be very, very honest. No, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say something and people going to take it the wrong way. So I'm just going to leave it at that for right now. Okay.
I think we should start. Go ahead and say it.
Go ahead and say it. Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to say it. I'm going to be honest with you. I've got probably 300 to 400 people in my phone contact. And I'll tell you the truth. I was looking through my phone contact. There was a couple of people I had in mind to try to help to join in with us on this podcast, but they were busy. They couldn't join us. And I'll have to tell you, it was very, very, very hard for me. No offense to my people on my contact list, but it was very hard for me to come up with a couple of other people that I thought would be able to fit the discussion that we're going to have. And to tell you the truth, what I was looking for was some older women, in their 60s or 70s, something like that, maybe 50s, 60s, or 70s, who
50 is not older women.
Who's that?
50 is not an older woman.
50 is not older?
No.
What's midlife? I mean, what is the mid?
I'm not talking about midlife.
Oh, okay.
That's a whole nother subject.
Okay.
50 is not old.
Okay. Hey, let me throw this in there. If we're living, the average lifespan in this country is what, 76, 77?
Uh-huh.
What is midlife?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not old.
Okay.
Though, that's all.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's another.
it is.
I guess that's another topic.
Yeah, y'all being ageist over
I
here.
think that's another
That's
topic.
a whole nother topic.
But I was trying to find. Let me say 60s then.
Okay,
above
60, yeah.
I was trying to find some mothers of male children over 60. That's what I was trying to find was in my contact list I just had that was the problem. It wasn't that I couldn't find some people that I thought would do good. It was just that no one came to mind, when I was looking through my thing. So that's what it was. It wasn't all that bad. Okay. So let's go ahead then and get started on today's topic, which is blame versus taking personal responsibility. So again, I provided all of the folks with a copy of this podcast that these two young men conducted, and everybody listened to it because I verified it, including Nikki. Nikki, yeah, she even listened to it,
Which is weird. But
yes,
yes,
that's
did.
kind of weird. So what we'll do is we'll talk to some of what I thought were some of the main points on the podcast that kind of led me to believe that the host, they were supposed to be talking about trauma and hurt and that type of thing, and they did. They talked about trauma and they talked about hurt, but I got caught up on all of the blame that was going down. So one of the things they talked about was that one of the hosts mentioned that many times men's trauma, their distrust, and even disdain of women come from their toxic moms. What are your thoughts on that? And one of the young men actually said that. He said that his trauma, because he had trauma, he admitted he had distrust of women, and in some cases disdain from women, and he blamed that on his toxic mom. What are some of you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, Papa, I might sound weird coming out of the gate, but I don't disagree with that necessarily. I mean, psychologically, we hear growing up that women marry their fathers and men marry their mothers. So by default, that would seem to make sense.
I hear you. And I would kind of agree with that, but I guess the toxic part of it, just because I marry a woman who kind of have similarities of my mom, hopefully I'm not marrying her because I have distrust for women. I had distrust for my mama. She caused me a lot of trauma. And hopefully that's not why I'm marrying a lady. But I agree with what you're saying, though, about we have a tendency to,
Well, and I think what that means is you are attracted to things that are familiar.
Yes.
So you find yourself finding traits in people that mimic the traits you learned. Your father is your first male influence. Your mother is your first female influence.
Yes.
So those things teach you what to expect and not expect. And I think we would be lying to ourselves if we didn't realize that we have trauma from our parents. Doesn't mean that we can't hold ourselves accountable for how we show up.
That's the key.
But that does formulate sometimes our thought process.
Yeah.
Let me put it in another way. If I can interject here. Everybody most knows I'm divorced. When I got married early, and I took my fiance home at the time. And I remember my dad asked me, he said, "Bro, you know how much of a headache me and your mom had around this house. And you went out there and brought someone home every summer.
You kind of faded out, Jackie.
So I said, most everybody knows that I'm divorced.
Right.
So
We heard that part, but that part you were talking about what your father was telling you?
My father told me, you know how much of a headache your mom and I had together around this house. And you go out and find someone that matches your mother identically. So a lot of times early in life, when the first teacher of the children is the mother, it's really not the father.
Uh-huh.
So when mom is mad with dad, the first person that hears her disdain is that child, whether it be a male or female.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when dad is mad with mom, a lot of the time he goes off and goes into the woods hunting and go work on the car or something like that.
You fading out again, Jackie.
I don't know. Ella, hold on. Maybe the phone. Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, I hear you now.
So I said a lot of times when mom is mad around that house, the first teachers of the children are women. They're the nurturers. When mom is mad with a father, the kids hear everything.
Yes.
So the toxicity starts right there.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Dad is not this. Dad is not that. Your dad this. Your dad this. Boom, 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 boom. So that sets up an image in that kid's mind of who dad is and who dad isn't.
Uh-huh.
So the toxicity starts right there. So it's not far-fetched to understand how that is passed on. The first delivery of that message is that mother.
Okay.
Hey, and you know how you just said all the things the mother would say negatively about the man? They do that intentionally, I believe, because they know it plants something in the back of that kid's mind as they grow up. I like that one.
I don't necessarily think that it's intentional. I think we have to be thoughtful of how people show up. And I think just as we're having this conversation and just as we all grow up, there's a lot of times you do things without realizing why you do them. They seem to be a default setting that you go to. But if you haven't done the work to figure out why you're doing something, I don't think women or men are intentionally trying to create chaos in their kids' lives. But if you're toxic, you don't even realize that you're spewing toxicity because you may not realize you're toxic.
I agree with that, Tammy.
A woman, no. I promise.
Yeah, I think you put a lot of responsibility on women to know things. While I think women are wisdom, I think people still learn and grow. So I think we're putting responsibility sometimes on people that they themselves haven't even acknowledged yet or are aware of.
So you're telling me that a woman tells her child negative things about the father, it could be out of the heat of the moment, but you think it's for them to only just to remember at that moment or carry that with them?
I think when you do things in the heat of the moment, you're not thinking about what tomorrow is. You're thinking about that moment. And that's an emotional maturity. So we're assuming that a person is emotionally mature enough to know that what they do in that heat of that moment will carry past that moment. Sometimes they don't.
So you can't control what you say in a moment of anger?
I think there are people who cannot regulate their emotions, absolutely. Then we talk about toxic people, right? Toxic people aren't sitting there thinking, they don't wake up today and say, I'm going to see how I'll be toxic today. I know I'm going to fix the world today.
Hey, we all got a little toxicity in us. It just depends on the situation.
But I have a question. I have a quick question, Tony. So, and whomever else would like to answer this, but I am directing it to you, Tony, because you kind of asked the follow-up question of Tammy. So then my question would be, if the mother, let's go with your thought process, and I'm not agreeing with this, but I'm just saying, I'm just going with what you're saying. If the mother is making a conscious choice to plant this negative image of the father of that child, right? If the mother is like, you know what, I'm going to plant this seed that your father's not this, your father's not that, whatever, right? Let's go with that, right? And she's making a conscious choice, either because she's toxic or she can't control emotionally, she can't control herself, whatever that reason is, right? What do you think is the purpose of that? Because to me, think about this, if she had this tells you how potentially maybe how this person may need some help. And the reason why I say this is because if you love your child, right? You love your kid, let's go with that. Then even if you could not stand the father of that child. If you love your child, you would not dump toxicity into that child because you love that child, right? And so my question is when people think that this is like such a conscious level, then it's kind of like, but if she loves this child, why would she be dumping toxicity and poisoning, regardless if it's about that man or not, into that child? Because that's not love.
Let him
respond
answer.
to that. I question any mother that says she loves her child when she goes out of her way to interfere with the relationship between that child and the father.
I agree.
You don't love your child.
I agree.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So too many women they want to disparage that father because it makes her feel good and she gets to win and hurting that child hurting that child, and it goes through that child's life. You don't love your child. So we take love off the table. You don't love your child, you're trying to hurt that child.
And that was my point.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, that was Jackie. That was Jackie answering the question. But what do you think?
I'm sorry. That was me, Tony. I'm sorry, Tony.
Oh no. That was good. That was good.
No explanation needed. That's good. So I'm gonna speak from personal experience. So my oldest daughter, right? I was kicked out of her life because I chose not to engage in sex with her mother. So she told my daughter a lot of things about me that was negative. So I went to see her one day. It was like the 4th of July.
How old is she?
She was, at the time, like, I would say maybe 10.
Oh, okay.
So she's young.
She's young.
Yeah,
so,
that's young.
So I went over there to bring fireworks. And my daughter said to me, I cannot talk to you anymore. I said, you can't even call me on the phone? You can't. She said, my mama said, I cannot have any contact with you anymore. So, to this day, we really don't talk.
How old is she to this day? How old is she now?
Right now, she's about close to 30.
And so since 10 years old, you guys really haven't had a close relationship the last 20 years?
Exactly. And I used to have her like with me a lot.
Well, I think that's wrong. I mean, I think that's wrong for the woman,
I have the exact same scenario.
I think that's horrible.
The exact same scenario with my son.
That's not right.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
These women do this knowingly because they know it plants a seed.
And they know it hurts the father. See, it's done out of you trying to hurt me. And the only way a woman, for the most part, that has children, when a man is done with her, the only thing she can do is try to hurt him through his children because he loves those children.
So can I ask you both the question? So I'm going to ask this for both of you men who stated this, because when we started this, it was talking about toxicity and how men may get distrust from their mothers. And you have indicated that women knowingly make decisions. Would you then also say, if you didn't know that you didn't trust your mother, do you believe that all the decisions you made with the women in your life, including the mothers of your children, where you knowingly made decisions to hurt them? Yeah, that's for you, Jackie, and you, Tony. Did you knowingly make decisions to hurt them?
We knew. You've heard me say this. I would say it. I never made a decision.
You're fading out again, Jackie.
I don't know. I said I've never made a decision without looking at the outcome of that decision. A lot of times, I know what I'm about to do is going to cause some pain.
And you did it anyway.
And I did it anyway.
But do you know why you did it?
It doesn't matter why.
Okay. Tony, same question for you.
Honestly, I think I taught myself. All right, so once I understood breaking that chain of thinking how my parents grew, how I grew up was molded. I took it on myself a long time ago to like pick for myself, be my own mold. So I don't know if I fit that topic.
So you don't believe that you believe that every decision you made with regards to your relationships, you did it fully knowing the choices and the consequences, and you were intentional in all of them?
Yes.
Then
I do.
Well, the reason where I'm going with that is I don't think everybody is as intentional as you guys believe they are. Because I think the goal of this is talking about distrust and where trauma comes in. And you mentioned in your statement even that once you figured it out, so that would indicate that there was a period of time that you hadn't figured it out. So you weren't as intentional. And I think it's the same with women. I'm not giving them a pass. I'm simply saying that to make the assertion that women always know is where there is a challenge, because sometimes they don't. Just like we grow and learn to do the work, other people have to grow and learn and do the work. And to make the assumption that all women are toxic, or not even all women, moms that are toxic are all doing it from a place of intentionality because they all fully understand, I think it's about. I don't think that happens.
Hold on. So you just heard my guy say kids imitate what they see and hear. And that goes into their subconscious. You just heard him say that, and that is the same thing. You know what your kids see or what you tell them is going to stick with it. So why not be more conscious what you're saying? Because you know what you're saying and what it's going to do to that child, because you know it's a child.
I think that's the point I'm making, Tony, is I don't think everybody is that conscious, because I don't think everybody's that emotionally mature. This is
everybody
everybody
knows what happens with a child, though. We're not talking about adults. Everyone knows that child, if you tell that child something, you know what you're doing. And they're going to resent their father because why? That's what you planted to see intentionally.
Tony, let me interject really quickly. So I think that it is wrong, right? When either parent plants poison into their child especially about their parent, right? I think that that's wrong, right? Poison, right? Especially if this parent is a good, loving, caring parent. I'm talking about a good, loving, caring parent that wants to be there for their child. I'm not talking about some other stuff, right? So I'm going on the premise that the mom loves their child, the father loves their child. I'm going on that premise, and that they're good parents, right? This is the premise I'm coming from. I think it's wrong when, from pain or whatever that you're going through as an adult, if you plant poison into your child about that other parent that's trying to be a good parent, that wants to love.
And I think we can all agree with that.
So I think that's wrong. But I don't want to say, but I'm going to say in addition to that, though, I think that I'm trying to understand where you're coming from, Tony, of that, well, you know what you're doing. But I think that some people truly don't fully understand what they are doing in the sense of how that's going to impact the child. Now, they may know that they're doing something to hurt that man, right? They may know, oh, I'm gonna hurt this man because I'm gonna talk about da-da-da-da, right? But there's a difference of knowing that, trying to hurt that man, versus I'm hurting my child worse than that man. And that is where I think the disconnect is, and where these kids grow up feeling traumatized, distrust, disdain, right? Because that child has had poison poured into them, right, from this person that's supposed to love them, and they had nothing to do with, right? They had nothing to do with the choice that we have made to have a child with this person, right? And this kid is looking like, I ain't got, what's this got to do? Why are you pouring poison into me? Because you're trying to get back at my daddy, right? And I think that those are two different things. So I think there's two different things of the impact of us, of someone consciously knowing how this is going to impact the child versus their intent to hurt the man. Those are two separate things. That's all I'm saying.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
The understanding part, I agree.
Okay.
And so, and so this is good. This is good because what I'm hearing is I'm hearing those young brothers from that podcast, and my thought is many of us, especially coming from our many of our backgrounds, many of us have went through some traumatic experiences, but it didn't all come from mama. You know, it did not always come from mama. Daddy, if daddy was in the home, daddy has brought his trauma into this picture also. And you know, they didn't talk about that part of it in that podcast. They talked about blaming the moms for their toxicity, but I didn't hear either of them say anything, unless I missed it. I could have missed it. You guys listened to it, but I didn't hear them stressing the toxicity that the fathers brought into this mix. Now, keep in mind, my whole thing about that podcast was the blame part of it. As an adult, once you become like your 30-year-old daughter, Tony, I mean, at what point is she going to figure this out? Is she going to figure this out? Is she ever going to figure out what happened? That my relationship with my dad right now is based on me and my dad. The hell with that bullshit that happened in the past. Right now, I'm an adult woman. My daddy's an adult man. He's my daddy. I'm his daughter. I should be loving him. He should be loving me. And whatever that was that we came from, we need to get past that. And we need to work this shit out. That's what my point is. I don't get it. You guys don't know me. You really don't know me, and you don't know where I came from. But I can tell you, them young fellas on that podcast, I make them look bad if I shared my personal history. But I don't let what happened with me, as far as I know anyway. I don't let that affect. Go ahead, baby.
Yeah, I was going to add something too. Go ahead.
Go ahead, you go first.
All right, two things on that right there, on this one. I'm the first one to say that. Well, I'm not the one to say men don't cause any problems. But this is the problem when we start going down this road. And that is this: we cannot have conversations with regarding each gender without throwing the other gender under the bus. Like one of the questions that Kevin Samuels used to ask women: what problems do you have that is not a man's fault? That means you gotta take that microscope and put it up under your
all right, brother. You started to break up there. You started breaking up with the question Kevin Samuels was asking of women.
Okay, we're trying to move around to make sure that we get a better connection here. One of the questions that Kevin Samuels asked.
You did it again. You were okay until you started asking the question.
Where he didn't move. I don't know what's happening.
I can hear you.
It's technical difficulties. It's
all
good. It's all good.
We're still good.
Yeah. But go ahead, Jackie.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Let's go back to technical difficulties.
I can hear you. I hear you clear now, brother.
Yep.
What problems do women have that is not a man's fault?
What problems do women have? Mm-hmm.
That means you got to take the microscope and put it up under your actions and behaviors. Men, we cause problems. I get that. And when we having conversations about men and our missteps, let's have it. But when we're having conversations about women and their missteps, we cannot say, what about this? What about the men? No, what about you as women?
I think the same argument that you're stating, though, is the same argument we're saying. When a man says, I'm this way because of my mother, there is a very thin line between blame and personal accountability. And while you might want to say that it's because of my mom, there's just as many people that might have had the same situation or worse, as Pop is saying, that that's not how they chose to show up. So when the discussion comes out that, well, my mom was toxic or I didn't trust women because of my mother, while that might be the reason, You still have to do the work as to why you show up today.
Who?
And whoever it is. And the reason I was challenging you earlier, Tony, is because you were saying women know. There is this narrative, and even in that video where I think the argument comes in, there is this, I might show up the way I show up today, but it's not my fault I show up the way I show up today.
There you go.
And at the end of the day, we all have to be accountable.
Yes.
As my grandmother used to say, get off the cross, somebody else needs the wood. We could sit and explain how daddy wasn't there, mama wasn't there, this didn't happen, that didn't happen. But at the end of the day, the person that shows up is us.
Yes.
If I go to my job and tell them I'm not doing good on my job because my college wasn't shit, I'm
There
still
you
gonna
go.
get fired.
Okay. Guess what? If a man shows up and hadn't healed and is not worked on himself, you know what the women gonna tell him? You need to go get some stuff together.
You started breaking up again. You started breaking up again.
Here, I'm gonna turn the phone away from you. So now try it.
I said, oh my goodness.
That's good.
That's good.
when oh my God.
You said when men start showing up some way.
No, if a man shows up and he's not healed and he hadn't worked on himself, society and the women in our lives are gonna tell us you need to go get your stuff together.
They tell women that.
And when we tell women you need to go get your stuff together because everything that you bring into the table is not sugary, is not strawberries and cream, we get all this pushback. Well, what about the men? No. Go to the mirror and slap the first person that you see that's causing the problem.
100% agree.
I agree with that too.
We keep kicking the ball down, we kick the can down the street, thinking we're gonna find a solution. No. Stop what you're doing. Stop the nonsense. You know, telling this son that your daddy is a piece of crap, it doesn't go well later on in life.
I agree.
I agree.
What happens is, and this is a personal situation, as I got older, and I realized that before my mother was my mother, she was my dad's girlfriend and his wife, I saw my mother differently. And then when I reached out to build a relationship with my father, you know, the first person that had a problem with that situation was my mother.
Right.
So you still are not understanding. You're still pushing that narrative that the problem is the men itself.
Well, let me share something with you. Let me share something to y'all. Let me share something with y'all. My mama's 100 years old to this day. She's 100 years old. I'm not gonna tell you how old I am. All right, I'm not gonna tell you how old I am.
And don't tell too much of grandma's business.
I'm not gonna tell her. She
Okay.
won't like that.
Yeah.
But let me tell you something, fellas and ladies. Let me tell you something. I do not know who the hell my daddy is. I've never seen a picture of my daddy. Up until I was like in my 50s, the man that's on my birth certificate, I thought was my daddy. And my mama decided at some point to let me know, son, that's not your daddy. And she can't tell me who my daddy is. She can't tell me. I'm pretty sure she knows, but she can't seem to tell me who my daddy is. I don't have a picture of but let me tell you something. I love my mother to death. My mama keeping that from me, that was my mama thing. I'm going to be honest with you. She did what she did for her reasons. Now, some people might say, well, you missed out on your dad and all the rest of this stuff. Again, this is me. This is how I dealt with that. I am not blaming my mother. You see what I'm saying? Some people talking about your mother's was talking bad about your daddy and so on and so on. I didn't have that. My mama didn't talk at all about my daddy. I grew up with no daddy. There was no daddy in the household. So I guess all I'm trying to say is, and I am who I am today because I'm not holding grudges against anybody. I'm not blaming anybody for who I am today. I am 100% responsible for that. I believe anyway. That's my point. And maybe I'm not the right person to be talking about that because for me, I think I'm pretty healthy. You know what I'm saying? So maybe I shouldn't be talking about this because I'm pretty healthy. Go ahead.
Let me interject right there.
Go ahead.
Let me interject right there. Pop, I know you came up, you're older than I am. So that means your mom is considered older than I am.
Yes.
That generation, they knew how to keep their mouth shut. They knew how to. They had generational secrets a lot of the time.
Right. That's
So
true.
that set a dynamic throughout their family structure. Now let's fast forward to about 1975. All of a sudden, we got all these conversations. Everything is out in the open, as John and Taylor would say. So now everybody has a voice. They're speaking on their situation.
Social media. They got it all on social media.
It's all on social media now. So now people are opening up their mouths and they're talking about these generational lies, these generational secrets, and these generational curses. And so, yes, I'm responsible for what I do in life. I'm responsible 100%. But to say that me not knowing my father, me not knowing my mother, that doesn't affect you long term, I absolutely believe. I think it does. I think it does.
And you could be right. You could be right. But all I can tell you is, consciously, I don't feel it.
I think it. I definitely think it impacted you probably somehow.
Could it be? Now, let's go back. Let's go back and look at. We have a prime example in our lifetime. Tupac. His mother lied to him almost to the end that your father wasn't even around.
Tupac.
Okay. His mom, Afeni Shakur, lied about his father was dead until Tupac got shot and his dad showed up in the hospital. She lied to him his whole life.
I do believe not knowing who your father is or not having a father present or a mother present definitely impacts your life. To what extent, I cannot say.
Because 50% of who you are
correct.
Is a question mark.
That is correct.
And I think what we're saying, though, too, is that's one component of it. And I want to make sure, just to go back to this point about toxicity, I am by no means negating the fact that there are, and if we go back to that video, there are women doing toxic things to their children.
Absolutely.
There are toxic mothers, just like there are toxic fathers. And I'm not trying to take the blame off of women, nor am I trying to negate the fact that there is an impact. When your mom is toxic, and some of the things that video talked about, I can't remember the clothing, like the where these women have basically dysfunctional relationships with their sons.
Yes.
I believe those things are valid and they impact who you are. And I believe that all of the way that we grow up, whether you grow up with a toxic mother and or a toxic father, or an abusive father and or abusive mother, at the end of the day, that on some level shapes who you are. All I'm saying is we don't get to say to each other that it is somehow not my fault that I'm showing up the way I'm showing up. It may not be your fault that your mother and father were toxic. It may not be your fault because none of us can fix who we grow up in. And I'll give my own example again. I have relatives that say, you know what, you should be a statistic because you had a single mom, no father. You had things happen to you that other people have had happen to them, and it has broken them. I can sit and hold all of that. But as you said to me, the world doesn't owe me understanding for that.
Correct.
Right? And nobody's coming to save me.
Correct.
So if that's the mindset, when we say we got to look in the mirror, when it comes to relationships, and the only problem I had with that video, even though I did not disagree with them, the only problem I had is that, again, at some point, you have to once you recognize all those things, it is still your responsibility to do the work because nobody else can do it for you.
And Jackie,
and if a man is saying, oh, go ahead, Nikki.
And I was gonna say with that, and I understand. I'm trying to Jackie and Tony's point of I don't, and I think you're right. I don't think, and I do think women sometimes do this, and I have to check my own self. So I'll speak to myself. It is true. If a man comes to me and says, hey, look, I think this is a problem, this is an issue, whatever it is, right? And I say, well, what about you? I don't think that's the right response. I think I need to deal with what that person is coming to me and deal with that, process that, and deal with that. Now, that person may have issues too, right? But I agree. I need to deal with the person coming to me and saying, this is where I see some issues, right, and concerns. My only thing though is, again, what Tammy was saying is, at the end of the day, we need to take personal responsibility for, especially when you grown,
Yes.
for where you are in life. We're not talking about a person who's 16, 17. We're not talking
Yes.
about these podcasters who are 15, 16.
Yes.
Brains not fully developed because they ain't
These
reached
guys are
25.
smart.
These guys are smart. These guys are grown. And what I'm saying is, when you get to a certain age, when you're a child, you think like a child. When you're a child, yes, you're going to place blame on everybody but
Yes.
yourself, because you don't have the insight, the life learned experiences, the therapy, the relationship with God or whatever, to know my life is going to be a reflection of me. At the end of the day, I believe in God. At the end of the day, guys, I can't say, well, my husband, my daddy, my mama, my kids, my auntie. At the end of the day, I have to take personal responsibility for what I did or what I did not do. And that is my only issue that I have. Of course, these things that have happened to us, toxic parents, lack of parents not being there, not knowing who your daddy is, not knowing who your mama is, all these types of things absolutely impact us and make us who we are. But at the end of the day, it is our responsibility as a full-grown human adult to say, I need to work on this and do it. And again, if men, okay, want women to take personal responsibility, which we should, I shouldn't blame a man for something. I should take personal responsibility, right? Then we're just saying the man needs to do that too. I'm not saying tit for tat. I'm saying I need to take ownership of my stuff. You need to take ownership of your stuff. That's all I'm saying.
Let me throw this in there. By default, life holds men accountable. By default, life don't hold women accountable. Guess what? If you as a woman go out there and get and let some sorry dude shoot up the club and you come up pregnant, you can't get upset when you decide to carry his baby for 9 months and you want to get upset with the way it turned out. You knew he was a piece of crap at the rip.
I agree.
So you
Facts.
can't blame all men based off of your best of the choice at that point in time.
Nor should you. I don't, yeah.
No,
You know,
y'all, no. Hold on. And this is the issue what I'm talking about. See, women, y'all don't date women. Guys like Tony and Hardwired, we do. And so
How you know what I date?
You just unless you done switch stuff on your boy. Look. You know what? I'm sorry. If you're part of the alphabet community, I apologize.
Well, let me,
But
Jackie. Let me ask you a question. Brother. I know you've known Tammy and Nikki both for at least 20 years.
Correct.
That's correct, right?
Correct.
And now they both on this podcast, but we being honest here.
Hey, ask me gently.
I'm gonna ask you gently. I'm gonna try to ask you gently. But let me just put it to you this way. Let me tell you, I've known them for at least 20 years too. And I do not picture them as that woman who blames men.
Right. And guess what, Pop? I had this conversation today with both.
Okay.
They are outliers. So that being said, you two Ken and Nikki are small.
Brother, I got bad news for you. I got bad news for you, Jackie. I got bad news for you, brother. They're not the only two women. I know a lot of women like them. Here's what I'm gonna tell you and Tony. Tony been quiet over there.
Tony been
but
quiet.
He's been really
Is
quiet.
Tony sleep
But
over there?
I'm gonna tell both you brothers. Maybe y'all need to change your hunting ground, so to speak. Maybe y'all need to start hunting in different places. But go ahead.
Watch this. I said this to Tammy. I said a lot of things that we're talking about, that I talk about, a lot of it don't apply to us. Now I see it, but it doesn't mean that it necessarily impacts my life. But
Right.
I do have to be aware of it because I have a daughter and I got a son.
Right.
I do have to be aware of these situations.
Right.
So, and I see some of the things that guys go through, and obviously I see a lot of things that the women go through. So, my personal experiences, I hadn't seen a lot of this, but I have seen some of it, and I can speak to those situations.
Right.
So yes, I'm in church pop looking for one.
Okay, there you go.
I think Tony was going to chime in.
Tony wanted to chime in.
All right, I'm gonna say something, man. I'm gonna speak on the video, right?
All right.
About the guy about not trusting any women, right? So I don't know if this aligns with what you guys said, but this is what I think about that, right? We're asking a man who's never seen healthy love, who was raised in survival mode by a mother who was a child, and she was strung out, to just magically show up emotionally mature, trusting, and secure. That's like asking a man who's never learned to swim to dive into the deep end and not drown.
Tony, not to cut you off, but I was going to say that earlier.
Hold on, man.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I was about to say, maybe he's not blaming women. Maybe he's begging for love in the only language he knows: protection, reassurance, and overcompensation. You feel me? So, y'all say it's not my job to heal you. I feel that. I agree. But let's think about this. Women want healed men. But are you willing to be a safe place while he heals? Not fixing him, not to be his mother, but to just hold space while he flights through the storm. Because truth be told, a lot of these men were failed by women who raised them. And now they feel failed again by the women who date them.
How did women fail them? How did their mothers or grandmothers fail them?
Have you looked at the studies? Have you looked at
No.
statistics?
I'm asking a question. I'm not talking about studies. I'm talking about specific examples of how their parenting, lack of parenting, be it a grandmother, be it, auntie, whatever the mother figure was, be it their biological mother, their stepmother, their adoptive mother, their grandmother. I'm not talking about statistics. I'm talking about how, as a man, because I do not know, how do you feel, Tony first, then Jackie, but Tony, how do you feel? Because you said failed. How have we failed? How have women failed
Men.
They're men, yeah. Children.
So, according to his story, did she not fail him as a parent? Where was she at?
No, I'm talking about just how do your feelings, from your, you don't have to give personal examples of your life, but I'm saying generally speaking, what does that failure look like? What is it? Too much love, lack of love, where's the fail? Like when you take a test and you can see objectively, oh, I forgot to add, I forgot to minus, I checked B and it's supposed to be C. Yeah.
Can I put an example before you say something, Cody? Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example of what we talk about when we say fail. And you need to look at this from a big picture of life. Let's say you have a child, and you as a mother, that child falls and scratches his or her knee. The mother's first response is to go pick that child up and say, it's okay. Conversely, if that same child falls around that father says, get up. That is where the failure starts. You cannot give, like a male, we don't give us a soft place to land. Now, the men on this panel understand. Let's say I play sports, basketball or football, and I'm not playing my part. The men are gonna haze me. They're gonna clown me, or self-check, or we're gonna worry about sticking him. He's not gonna score anyway. See, a mother would sit on the sideline talking about why they teasing my son. A dad sit there and say, "You okay? You want to stop teasing?" Thank you, man.
So how did the women fail, though? I don't get that.
No, that's the failure, because you're not putting that child around. You're not putting that son around men, because you think all you need to do is give him a soft place to land. And that men don't learn by giving us a soft place to land. We have to fall and scratch our head. We have to fall on our face and get up. We have to get up. You cannot help us out by giving us a soft place to land.
But Tony just said, as a grown man, you want a soft place to land. So I'm confused.
No, No, my point is this. I get Tony's point. When we have a woman in life, we need to be able to come to that woman and say, okay, this is the area. This is what I have. I may have a self-esteem issue, or I may have some issues, some things that are going on that are taking me emotionally. I'm gonna tell you as my wife or my girlfriend, and the first thing you do in an argument is throw it up.
But as a child, doesn't a child need a soft place to land? Child.
No.
Tony.
No, absolutely not. No, let me correct that. A child needs both. A child needs both.
Tony, go ahead. Finish what you were saying, Tony.
How it affects the child's life? Well, how it fails the child's life, right?
Yes. How did women fail some children's life?
Okay, so I'm not going to give his life story example because that was one example for you right there. So if I, as a child, have been raised by my mother, and all I know is this feminine energy, and I'm around men with this energy, I don't think that, I'm going to give you a real life example, right?
Okay.
So I got a friend who was raised by his mother, and she does anything to try to get money,
Okay.
and he sees it all,
Okay.
play crazy, bang your head against the wall when we talk to these people. And now, as he's older, he still has that mentality. He hasn't grown to get out there, go get it. No, he tries to get over it. So, where did that come from?
Bad
That was in
parenting.
my-
I think it comes from bad parenting. That's where I think that's
Exactly.
right. But
Exactly.
right. But bad parenting. You can have a mother and a father. You can have a marriage. The husband and the wife are in the same home and they're married. And if you have bad parenting, that to me, so this is, I guess, to me, there's a difference between bad parenting.
I'm gonna interrupt. I'm gonna interrupt.
That's bad parenting.
Yeah, I'm gonna interrupt. I just like we're sharing some personal experiences. I personally know of families where the mother and the father both, they're in the home, they work, they appear to be normal mothers and fathers. And then you have these kids in this household, they turn out not so well. Crime, drugs, prostitution, you name it. So I've seen that. I've personally seen that. Then let me finish. And then I've seen that other situation that you guys have mentioned, Tony and Jackie, where you have this young male, and this is me. This is my personal story. A young male who grew up with a mother raising him, with men in and out of the house, because she was doing what she needed to do to make a living. I witnessed all of that. I personally witnessed all of that. And let me tell you something. As far as I can tell, now maybe I'm wrong. That didn't affect me as far as how I see women. That doesn't affect me. I don't distrust women. I don't have disdain for women. I don't think they're untrustworthy, any more untrustworthy than a male. That's just me. Because what I've done, and this is what this was all about, is taking personal responsibility. And Tammy, you've said it too, for taking personal responsibility for where we are at, who we are. No matter where we came from, Matter of fact, appreciating where we came from. That's my whole thing with this. Let me tell you something. There's not many people who came from a worse background than I came from. I'm just gonna tell you that part of it. There's not many people that witnessed what I witnessed. Okay, I'm gonna share. Now I'm not gonna share anymore with you. I'm not gonna. Nikki shaking her head. I'm not gonna share anymore with you. Go ahead, baby.
I will say this, and I agree with you, and I think again there are toxic people, and I'm by no means giving them a pass because I think the way you do, but I realize that I had to do the work to get there.
Yes.
And so what we're talking about is we both had to get to a journey of healing. And it doesn't negate, like when we looked at that video and when I knew what they were talking about, there are a lot of people that grew up with toxic people that have not healed.
Yes.
And there are a lot of people that haven't healed from the effects of that toxicity.
Yes.
Because we talk about stuff now like attachment styles and all these different things. All that came from stuff with us growing up. And I'll even say for me, I still have to do the work on some areas.
Yes.
Growing up the way I grew up, I recognize now that made me feel like I'm not enough and I'm not worthy.
Yes.
I can't put that baggage on another man. Because if I put that on him, I'm not being accountable for how I show up today.
Right.
Does that negate what happened to me? Nah. Do I give the people a pass that did what they did? No.
Right.
Do I know there are toxic mothers and toxic fathers out there and they do some stuff that's real jacked up?
Yes.
I'm not taking away from that. I'm really not. And even in that video, I'm not taking away from what those men said. But I also know that I have, and I'm still doing the work.
Yes.
Like I'm still doing that work because how I show up is nobody else's responsibility but mine.
Exactly.
So, can I say this?
Yes.
So, with all that being said, I'll always fight for our brothers to be understood. But that understanding don't excuse inaction. At some point, every man's got to decide. Do I keep bleeding on people who didn't cut me? Or do I stitch my wounds and stand tall? It ain't fair what he went through, talking about the dude on the video.
Right.
But staying broken does become a choice.
I
Yes.
agree. That's that part. Yes.
Because we live in a time where there's therapy, books, brotherhoods, even podcasts like this
Yes.
that he has access to. The streets might raise you, but the internet can hear you if you let it.
Yes.
So while I feel him, I can't co-sign blaming women. Love don't fix childhood trauma.
Yes.
He has to meet her halfway with healed effort, right? So,
Yes.
because the truth is, if you keep expecting every woman to prove she's not your mama, you'll ruin the ones who were sent to love the man you could have been, and that's just about his situation.
And Tony, and I agree with that. And again, I think Jackie brought up a good point. I think you brought up a good point too, Tony. Is I think again, if I'm with with a man, with my husband, and he's calling me out, and he's like, "This is what you need to work on." I need to receive that. I should not be like, "Well, you need to do this." I should receive him coming to me and saying, "Hey, this is something I think that you need, an area that you need to work on." And then we can have a discussion of how that looks. And at the same time, and like you had said though too, is that the whole bleeding on someone that did not cut that wound, that did not create that wound. And I think that if we just take personal responsibility, I am not going to blame a man for where I'm at as a full-grown woman, nor do I want a full-grown man blaming his mama for where he is. That's all I'm saying. There comes a point in time where you can say, yes, this did make it happened.
Yes.
And
it has affected me.
And it has impacted me.
Yes.
And I had to have therapy, and I had
Yeah.
to do this, and I
Yeah.
had to do that, and I had to go to the
Yeah.
Lord
Mm-hmm.
because of all these things that happened. But at the end of the day, you're ahead of the game if you know that you were jacked up
Yeah.
somewhere. You're
Yeah.
ahead of the game. You can
Yeah.
say, you know what? This is why I'm having some trust issues. This
Yeah.
is why you're ahead of the game. If you can say, because my mom did this or
Yeah.
this or that or lack of men or whatever, you're ahead of the game because you see where the source is. Then it's your responsibility
To do the work.
To do the work.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying. Because your mama can't do nothing now.
Nah. Okay. I'll tell you what. We
Yeah,
we're
gonna have
We need to have a part 2 on this.
we're gonna
Yeah.
have to have a part 2, maybe part
Yeah,
3.
yeah,
Literally,
this
this is
is
a
a-
lot.
Part
Yeah.
2 or 3.
yeah.
Yeah,
the-
because that series on that series on the video, there's a 6-part series to that. This conversation is going much deeper.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
much deeper.
Yeah, I think you're right that we're gonna have to continue this.
Yeah.
This is a lot.
So it really kind of gives us a foundation though to go with. So I'll tell you what we'll do is any last thoughts or comments at this point, and we can pick this back up. We can pick this back up next week probably. What do you guys think?
I think so if it works with everybody.
All right. So why don't we go?
Yeah.
Why don't we go ahead, Tony? Your last thoughts, comments.
Yeah, another episode on this to be beautiful because I want to speak on what the other guy was talking about.
Jackie?
About,
No, on the podcast.
Oh, on the podcast?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay,
All
I
right.
think that's good.
That's good.
Jackie, your final comment?
Yeah. Look, I know it comes off as if at times I'm blaming women, and I'm not.
Yes, you are.
Hold on, let me say this.
Go ahead. I'm gonna let you go ahead, but yeah, go ahead.
Cammie knows this. I've been in the smoke shop out here, and I'm the only dude talking to a table full of guys, and I'm the smallest guy in the room,
Okay.
and I'm holding them accountable.
Okay.
I'm way harder on us men than I would ever be on women.
Okay.
But when we're talking about women, we need to stay locked in on that. When we talk about the sorry crap BS that men do, we just stay locked in on that. Cause men, I'm a man. We do some messed up stuff, and I get it. But when we gonna hold the other gender accountable, damn it, let's stay locked in on that. Instead of the what about it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jackie.
I agree. Yeah.
And by the way,
she snuck that in there,
for us
Jackie.
to grow, let me say this: for us to grow, I want you to believe we got to have these hard conversations. We all know a negotiation is not when two people leave that table and they happy. A negotiation is when two people leave that table and they both still mad because each one of them gave up more than what they wanted to. So we got to have these hard conversations and figure out we're better together than we are apart.
Yes.
That's a word.
Yes.
Tammy?
I want us to get to the point that it's us against the problem and not us against each other. And
I-
I feel that.
That's a good point.
I like that.
What did you say? What did you say, Jackie?
I'm saying, y'all the problem.
Okay, then.
The women are the problem. So that's
I'm
a
sorry.
good ending note.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jackie.
Yeah, but
for
I
that.
didn't. I'm sorry if I spoke too quick. No, I don't agree with that. I want that on the record.
Yeah.
I do not agree that the women are the problem. Okay, I'm still married. I'm still married. I'm still happily married. I want to stay that way. I have learned. Okay.
I'm gonna say this. Sometimes we are the problem. Sometimes the men are the problem. But
That's good. That's good.
When I say we get to us against the problem, and I said this to Nikki earlier, if a man says I don't know how to lead, and a woman says I don't know how to be led, it's not them against each other. It's nobody knows how to lead. So let's focus on that problem rather than focusing on what each other can do.
Good point.
The women are the problem.
Okay.
Well, we'll have to wrap it up next time.
Okay. On that note, we really gonna end.
And I'm blaming the man because Pop is the one that's wrapping it up. Pop is the one that's wrapping it. It's his fault.
Okay, guys. All right, we'll take this up. We'll take this up next week. We would really like to thank the audience for joining in, and hopefully you'll join us next week where we'll be continuing. Please leave your comments at DNA Hardwired Podcast at gmail.com. That's DNA Hardwired Podcast at gmail.com. Or we have a Facebook page. It's just look up DNA Hardwired Podcast on Common Sense. Again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, yes.
And so we're dropping the mic on this session. Thank you, guys.
Dropping the mic.
Think it through, people.